What's up, Nashville? I am Beau Beach. Welcome back to the podcast. I am a commercial real estate broker that specializes in listing and selling commercial property in Nashville and the Southeast. If I look a little funny or a little bit different to you today, that's because I accidentally lost 12 pounds in 1 week. That is a good story that my wife has asked me to stop sharing, so I'm not going to share it with you today. But I lost some weight that I didn't want to lose, and I'm looking a little bit skinny and weak at the moment, and I'm working on that. Nevertheless, the podcast exists to catch you up on the past few weeks of commercial real estate news. We're going to bring you stories that are informative, that are perhaps more on the entertaining side. Let's get into it. The first story of the day is going to be a nationwide story, which is kind of uncommon for us. We really like to specialize in those stories and topics specific to Middle Tennessee, but I do think this is informative. Office vacancies across the country are currently dropping, and this is why. It's not because companies are bringing their employees back from work from home scenarios, right? Where during the pandemic, we sent everybody home. Many of those companies continued to allow their employees to work from home. That's not the problem here, or not the reason here, rather. The reason really is developers are building less new space, so the development pipeline is very much slowed down, and older buildings are being demolished to make way for something new. So it's really a conversation about supply more than it is demand, right? The overall pipeline of office space has stood at about 50 million square feet for more than a year now, matching a previous low from 2011. The national office vacancy rate is expected to decline, albeit at a slow pace going forward. Despite big headlines from major employers mandating their workers return to the office, census data shows that the number of people who said they worked from home at least part of the time has stayed relatively steady at about 22% over the last 2 years. Office to apartment conversions have reached a record level, with over 90,000 units in different stages of development as of the start of the year. Older, poorly located office buildings are being permanently removed from the inventory, helping the supply adjust to smaller demand base, while newer, amenity-rich office space is absorbing the existing demand. 2025 was the first year that office space removals, whether through demolition or conversions, outpaced newly completed space since they began tracking such a thing in 1988. Companies might not need as much space, but the space they do end up leasing is in far newer and amenity-rich places. So what's happening here? What's happening here is less office buildings are coming out of the ground. Some of the older office buildings are being converted to other uses. So even with demand holding constant, if supply is falling for that reason, you've got a decrease in vacancies nationwide. What I think is interesting is about 22% of workers still claim to be working at least some time from home. The office to apartment conversion pipeline has never been stronger. And what we are seeing is when those office leases roll over, the companies are tending to upgrade their space, right? They're going into smaller space, but nicer buildings with more amenities. So that's what's happening nationally from an office perspective. I will tell you, there's some real concern in Nashville that new development stalled out so substantially that we're really going to have a shortage, especially for those big users that we're trying to attract from other states. So if anything, we're worried we're going to run out of office space in Nashville. There are some new, bigger projects being talked about now, but with a 2 to 3 year development timeline, that space is not going to be coming online anytime soon. So something to take a look at. I will tell you that Nashville really should not be compared to the national average on anything. We've got many more positive things going for us as a market than 90% of the rest of the country. But nevertheless, I do think it's kind of interesting and perhaps useful to know what's happening nationally as part of some of these big trends. So let's get into more local stories now. 4 of Chicago's most prominent hospitality groups now have a presence in Nashville, and they have recently invested millions to be here. Let us entertain you. Lettuce spelled like the vegetable, right? Let us entertain you. Restaurants opened ABBA in Wedgwood, Houston, Sushi San in 12 South, and is in planning Tacos El Terry just off of Lower Broadway. Boca Restaurant Group opened a trio of concepts called Momotaro Middleman in Ala Vita in Wedgwood, Houston this year. Hog Salt has partnered with Sam Fox's Author and Edit Hospitality to open Ah Cheval in 12 South. So all of these Chicago, we'll call them restaurant empires, are making their move on Nashville. And for some reason, it seems as though every concept has to have a weird name. I don't know who that is appealing to. Weird names are certainly not something that attracts me. If anything, it's kind of a red flag, like, oh, this is going to be something that I'm not interested in. But getting to the heart of this story, the group that I do think is going to have a lot of success and a concept I actually would visit is the Gibson's Restaurant Group, which owns some of the highest grossing independent restaurants in the country. It's getting its piece of Nashville with Gibson's Bar and Steakhouse, which will open in downtown Nashville in the spring of 2028. The over $10 million restaurant will open at 1414 Union Street, the former Phillips Plaza Tower, which is undergoing a transformation by TC Investment Holdings and Scott Borchetta. Quote, Nashville is a smaller town than Nashville is a smaller town than Chicago, much smaller, but it makes up for it in tourism. There's just so many people coming to Nashville, and the people that are coming are looking to go out and spend money and be entertained. It's the right type of tourist. And that's really what's driving all of the activity downtown. You really are paying the bills with tourists rather than locals. You know, I live in Williamson County. It's hard to get anybody out of Williamson County all the way downtown to any of these concepts. It happens, but it happens rarely. So really what we're doing is paying the bills with tourism. Gibson's was attracted to downtown for its tourism concentration and loved the landlord's vision for the improvements to the existing facade of that tower. Gibson's Bar and Steakhouse first opened 37 years ago in Chicago on Rush Street. And if anybody's spent considerable time in Chicago, they've heard of Gibson's. Beyond Gibson's Bar and Steakhouse, Gibson's Restaurant Group's portfolio includes Gibson's Tavern, Hugo's Frog Bar and Fish House, Gibson's Italia, Ristorante Cortino Pizzeria and Wine Bar, Hugo's Frog Bar and Chop House, Lux Bar, Ralph Lauren Grill, and the Boathouse. Gibson's plans to deliver the Nashville Gibson's Bar and Steakhouse before opening other restaurants in the market. Quote, we would love to open 2, 3, 5 more locations of our different concepts, but they always lead with the concept that has brand recognition, which is Gibson's Steakhouse, which is an excellent place to eat. It's kind of got an old school vibe. I don't want to say a supper club vibe, which may or may not mean anything to the folks in Nashville, but having grown up in the Midwest and lived in Chicago for a short period of time and then Wisconsin, the supper club concept is very popular in the Midwest. It's kind of harkens back to the old days of the dimly lit, not very updated, blast from the past type of steakhouse. So Chicago is making a major play on Nashville right now, really starting in those tourism-driven areas. Gibson Steakhouse is going to be a big hit. I'm calling it now. All of these other concepts with weird names, I would not personally bet on, but I'm wishing them all luck. The more the merrier in bringing good food options to Nashville, which I think is already has an abundance of options to choose from. Jelly Rolls Bar lowers its asking price by a whopping $13 million. Can you imagine a price adjustment? Most of the price adjustments we do at our brokerage are $100,000 at a time. They came down by $13 million. The building home to Jelly Rolls Goodnight Nashville is now listed for an asking price of $87 million, marking a $13 million drop from its initial listing last year. The 5-story, 31,000 square foot entertainment venue located at 209 Broadway first opened in February of 2025. Franklin-based Alpha Development is the owner of the property. They paid $20 million for the 0.14-acre site, which previously held a smaller building that was home to the retailer Trail West Boots in 2021. So in 2021, they paid $20 million for the dirt. They then built what is now known as Jelly Rolls Goodnight Nashville, asked $100 million for the finished and leased building, and now have come off that ask by 13 million big ones. Downtown skyscraper to offer 2 Hilton brands. Church Street's Fifth Third Center will be converted to a hotel space from its current office usage. We've talked about this in the past. Pivot Real Estate Partners paid $55 million for the building in 2025. Hilton's high-end LXR Hotels and Resorts was introduced in 2019. They are now offering 17 hotels in various countries and 25 hotels in the development stage. The other concept, so the first concept is called LXR Hotels and Resorts. The second concept that's going to be added to this building, which is an office conversion, right? We just talked about in the first story, an office conversion. Hilton Grand Vacations is the second concept. They operate a point-based vacation ownership and timeshare program. The brand offers 200 locations in the Europe, Japan, the Caribbean, and the U.S. Building eventually will feature 318 hotel rooms and 165 timeshare units. The Hilton Grand Vacation timeshare units will be located on the top levels of the skyscraper, with the LXR hotel rooms to be positioned on floors 4 through 15. I think that's interesting. If I had a luxury hotel brand, I would imagine I'd put them at the top of the tower and then put these timeshare folks on the lower levels, but they flipped that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the business has evolved a little bit, but I don't think real highly of timeshare programs. So to treat them like that's the more luxury of the two options, I think is interesting. The Blackstone Group paid approximately $145 million for this same property in 2019, then sold the property at an $89 million loss. The building opened in 1986 with 650,000 square feet of office space. The building had been home to the regional headquarters of Cincinnati-based Fifth Third Bank. The Fifth Third Bank Center, which is what the building was previously called, I'm sure that name is changing very soon, is Nashville's 8th tallest building. Nashville offers 4 buildings of 500 feet or taller: the AT&T Tower, the Four Seasons, 505, and the Pinnacle at Nashville Yards. So this is one of the tallest buildings in all of Nashville, a former 650,000 square foot office building, failed as an office building. Blackstone sells at an $89 million loss. The buyer picks up the building at a substantial discount to construction costs, and now is offering 2 different Hilton brands, one luxury hotel and one what must be a luxury timeshare program. So very cool use of the building, but that's what's happening in the greater office market, where some of these buildings that have failed as office concepts are being converted to other uses. Most markets are converting to apartments. In Nashville, with our very, very strong tourism scene, many of the conversions are being converted to hotel rooms, which is exactly the case here for what was known as the Fifth Third Center. Next, a 590,000 square foot development is planned to replace La Quinta Inn on Citgo Drive in Nashville. A new mixed-use development to Citgo Drive near the Harding Place ramp onto Interstate 65, to be called Citgo Commons, will create new apartments, some of which are set aside as affordable, a new hotel, and ground floor retail. The development will replace the La Quinta Inn and the Bedford events venue currently on the site. The Cracker Barrel and Waffle House are to remain. So if you can place where the Cracker Barrel is at Citgo and Interstate 65, that is the site of this planned mixed-use development. A request has been submitted to rezone the larger property to SP zoning, right? We've talked about this before. SP zoning is specific plan zoning, right? So they're going in front of Metro and asking permission for their specific plan, which does not comply with the existing zoning. But that's really how these projects are getting done on sites that are not zoned for the use that the developer has in mind. SP, or specific plan zoning, is the real mechanism to get bigger projects off the ground in Nashville. Once approved, the request will advance the mixed-use development on the 3.7 acre site, so a big site. The property consists of 2 residential and 1 hotel buildings above street level retail. Building A rises 12 and 16 stories, which comprises apartments above retail. Building B will be 5 stories, and the hotel tower will rise 16 stories. So that is a big building for that area. These projects are going to sky above the surrounding area. But with I-65 frontage and 3.7 acres to work with, there's plenty of room for these types of concepts. So I think this is a net benefit for the area. I think this is going to be a shot in the arm for Citgo Drive, which was already popular. The buildings in that corridor sell for a lot of money, but you really don't see very many vertical buildings. You don't see very many new buildings. It's usually older office and industrial stock, which is very in demand and very valuable. But this is kind of taking that corridor to the next level, so we're wishing them luck. J.C. Penney. Do y'all remember J.C. Penney? I do. When I was little, J.C. Penney was kind of one of the go-to spots that you go to find, clothes is what it comes to mind. But I think they had all kinds of different products. But I recall specifically going to J.C. Penney to look for like dress-up clothes, right? When you're a younger person, you're looking for perhaps a suit or button-up shirts, ties. One would go to J.C. Penney to look for those items. J.C. Penney to close at the Cool Springs Galleria, which is not really the story. The story that I think is interesting is what will replace it, right? Dick's House of Sport will open in the space in early 2028 as the concept's first in Tennessee. Remember that it's Dick's House of Sport. The Cool Springs Galleria JCPenney retail store will close by year's end after a long 32-year run. JCPenney hit a peak number of stores in 1973 with over 2,000 stores. The company's website notes it now has 641 stores currently still operating. So from over 2,000 stores down to 641. Cool Springs Galleria opened in 1991 with the JCPenney having begun operations 3 years later in 1994. Dick's House of Sport is to operate in about 100,000 square feet of space, which makes what makes these new Dick's concepts interesting is that they're experiential, right? They're going to offer wall climbing, golf bays with TrackMan simulators, and a HIT tracks multi-sport cage that can be used for baseball, soccer, and softball. There are currently 35 Dick's House of Sports locations in the United States, with plans to get that number up to 75 by 2028. So a very cool concept whereby we're talking, let's be honest here. Adults aren't going to hit in the batting cage. Children are going to be able to experience and try out different products before buying them in Dick's House of Sport, which I think is just going to be a very cool scene to experience. I think it's going to be great for the mall. I'm actually a big fan of Cool Springs Galleria Mall. Some of the other malls in the Nashville area get more attention, but my personal favorite is the Cool Springs Galleria. It's easy, it's laid back, it's never really that crowded. All of the things that dads want. Seats are important. Can I rest while my children are running around and going crazy? Are there easy food options at this mall? All the things that a crotchety old man like myself looks for in a mall is present at Cool Springs Galleria. So if you haven't been to that mall in a while, I would encourage you to check it out because I do think it is the best available option in the Nashville area. And you do notice when you're there, people come from all around. They aren't just pulling from Williamson County. People are coming from all around the area to experience that mall. Dick's House of Sport going to be a smashing success at that mall. And let's keep in mind, there's a massive apartment development happening on kind of the outer boundary of the mall, a lightly used parking lot being converted to high-end apartments over retail. This is right across from Canes. If you know where Canes is in Williamson County, it's kind of an outlet to the mall. Right next to Canes, a big underused parking lot, which is soon to be a mega apartment development, which is also going to bring a lot of energy to the mall. So a lot of fun things happening there. If you haven't experienced it, I recommend you get out and check it out. Next, a unique grocery store is slated for a historic Brentwood space. And I think this story is interesting because this Brentwood space was once occupied many years ago by a unique grocery store. Many years later, a different unique grocery store is about to take the reins. Nashville Farmers Storehouse is the name. Nashville Farmers Storehouse is taking over the former Huff's Foodtown building in Brentwood. Nashville Farmers Storehouse, a cooperative of farmers and families that connect producers directly with consumers, leased the entire 24,000 square foot space located at 144 Wilson Pike Circle. The new store is set to offer a market with organic and locally sourced products, as well as a flour mill, bakery, pizzeria, and a stage for live music. Mike Huff owns the Brentwood property. The Huff family purchased Foodtown in 1949 when it operated across the street before constructing the Wilson Pike building in 1983. Huff's Foodtown closed over 30 years ago. Nashville Farmers Storehouse currently has one location in Sparta, Tennessee, which is an interesting place to start your concept. I've done a little bit of business there. There's not a whole lot going on, so you would never guess that a concept starts in Sparta, Tennessee, but nevertheless, construction is underway on its Brentwood location. This wasn't simply about filling a vacancy. It was about finding a tenant that respected the property's history while bringing a unique retail concept to Brentwood. So I think that's a fun story. I think that is a very unique business. I hope it does well. I love the idea of having a stage for live music, kind of make it a scene, make it a fun place to visit, to take your kids, to try new things, to go to the bakery, to grab some pizza, to listen to live music. I think you've got to have something unique to get people in the door. Once you get them in the door, I think they're easy to sell to, but have a reason to get them in the door first, and you do so by making it more of an experience. And anytime you can add live music, I think you really improve the experience. Let's keep moving. Next story, TikTok shutters a huge Music Row office, lays off their entire Nashville staff. 2 years after signing a huge Music Row lease, this is a 145,000 square foot space in Midtown's Moore building. Quote, "We have decided to close our Nashville office to streamline our operations and better align our teams for long-term growth." The size that they had leased would be enough for a workforce of 1,000 people. I don't have the number for you in front of me of the number of folks affected by this, but that was enough space to park 1,000 people. The building sold for $146 million just this July. Surprise, you just bought a building with a 145,000 square foot vacancy. TikTok's lease was the largest office lease signed in Nashville in 2024, and the global social media giant spent millions of dollars building out the space. So the biggest office lease that got done just 2 years ago, the business just shut down after the building sold based on the cash flow it generates just a few months ago. So that is rough. That's rough for everyone that worked there. That's rough for landlords in the area that are going to have to compete with that huge block of vacancy. And that's the roughest for the guy that just bought the place, assuming that cash flow would be generated going forward. I don't know the length of that lease, but when a space goes dark, even if there's a little bit of lease term, that is, excuse me, that is very, very difficult to overcome. So I think that is one of the most shocking stories from the past few weeks. A lot of people negatively affected from that decision. Rock Harbor Marina site sells for over $10 million. West Davidson County's Rock Harbor Marina site, long planned for a major development. The new owner is called Blue Cove Marinas. The seller was Dallas-based Prescott Group, which paid over $8 million for the Cumberland River-facing property near the Nations in Charlotte Park in 2021. The site is perhaps best known for its Blue Moon waterfront grill. The property includes 30 acres of boating infrastructure. So this is land under the water that is owned and controlled by the marina. So when we say 30 acres, we're talking about most of that being water, right? Nashville's only full-service marina facility located directly on the Cumberland River. Blue Cove Marinas envisions expanded outdoor dining, live music and events, family-friendly play and gathering areas, upgraded landscaping and common spaces, and new food and beverage experiences for boaters, nearby residents, and visitors. Quote, "Rock Harbor has an incredible location, an authentic history, and a direct connection to some of the most dynamic neighborhoods in Nashville. Blue Moon Waterfront Grill opened in the 80s and closed in 2010 because of the flood. It was rebuilt in 2012 on a floating platform docked at the marina. The restaurant and bar opened in March for the current season." So, an investor purchased this property in 2021 and really sold this vision of what could be there. To my knowledge, very little of that work actually got done. And in 2026, they still were able to sell the property roughly as is, right, for a $2 million gain. I would think if you're getting into this property above $10 million, you better actually execute some of this value add stuff. I don't think you can just uh, stay in autopilot and expect it to sell another 5 years for another $2 million gain. I think that the money's been made on the existing operations. Uh, the future money to be made on this site requires actually doing something, changing it for the better. So I do expect you're going to see some changes at Rock Harbor Marina. Interesting story. Very, very lofty goals, big plans, but like many projects that sold in 2021, stalled out. Nothing happened, and these property owners have just been trying to carry them and carry them and carry them. And a lot of these guys are just throwing up their hands and saying, "Man, I just can't find the money. I can't find the equity money. I can't find the debt. You know, this project isn't going to work for me. If I took it to the market, could I sell it for more than I paid?" They found out that that was true. They took their $2 million and ran. Hopefully, Blue Co Marinas is actually going to be more of an operator that gets something done on site. I think that would be great for for our market. I've got four more shorter stories for you now, and then we'll wrap it up. Music City Loop Station set for the downtown JW Marriott. What I think is most interesting about the Music City Loop, right, which is the Boring Company's underground tunnel system that Tesla taxis will use to get people around the city much faster than using the city streets. And one thing I heard about this too is, they aren't only going to be in these tunnels, right? If it makes sense to come up out of the tunnel, drive across the traditional streets, and then jump back into a tunnel to get to the next spot, that's what they're going to do. So these taxis are going to come in and out of tunnels, whatever the fastest route possible is to get people where they need to go. And they have a ton of different stations that they're targeting here. The station will provide hotel guests with direct access to the Music City Loop, also known as the underground Tesla taxi service. Drilling remains ongoing around Nashville. None of these tunnels are currently in operation. The JW Nashville Hotel is located at 201 8th Avenue South. There are more than 40 stations in various stages of planning and design. In May, the company announced a private station at local development company Giordano's trio of Church Street towers. 2 boring machines are actively tunneling in Nashville now, with a 3rd machine expected to arrive this fall. The tunnel's critics claim environmental, safety, transparency, and accountability issues. Luckily, the critics don't have any say in any of these things. It seems to me that these are liberal Elon haters. Environment, safety, transparency, and accountability. Those are all liberal words. They've been able to avoid having to deal with any of them because the licensing, to my knowledge, comes through the state. They're running under state roads. So I'm very, very pleased that the incompetence of government has not been able to slow down this private project, which is going to change Nashville for the better without really costing us anything to do it. So if you can keep government out of the way, these things get done so much faster at less cost. You get more good things, and that's what's happening here. The company has had little to no communications with reporters in the area. So they don't talk to reporters. They don't talk to the local government. They post updates on their blog, and they just get things done. How refreshing is that? If a government were to ever take on a project like this would be a 10-year project, right? Elon, I'm sure, is going to have this thing operational in 1 to 2 years. It's going to be very, very cool. People, once they see it, are going to want to experience it. Once they experience it, they want to use it at all times. I will tell you that I recently bought a pair of Teslas. So we're going off script here for a second. I never really cared much about electric vehicles. I never saw it as, any type of virtue signaling about the environment. But one day I got in a Tesla and chose self-driving, whereby you just type in where you want to go and you sit back and watch that thing drive you. And it immediately told me that this is a technology that will change my life. There are very few things, at least at my age, kind of my stage of life, there are very few things that I can spend money on that will make my life better on a daily basis. One of those things, and it doesn't even cost that much, is a Tesla vehicle, right? I think they should come up with a new word for it, right? Uh, to say it's a car, I think doesn't tell the full story. It is a piece of technology that chauffeurs me from place to place without me having to spend any time, energy, any bandwidth at all navigating there. I never was a person that enjoyed driving. I thought it was exhausting. Um, and now I have a robot chauffeur, and you can get into these Teslas for not that much money. I would say around, $50,000. They have very attractive, low or no interest rate financing. It is a car that is super easy to afford, and it is a car that will change your life. I'm not even claiming they look cool. I'm not coming at this from any type of vanity or ego. I don't think the cars necessarily look cool. They're much smaller than I'm used to. I've always been a big SUV guy. We got a Model S, and she's a Model 3 and a Model Y, which are two small cars, a sedan and like what they call a midsize SUV. They're small cars. I don't care what I look like driving it. What I care about is that thing drives me better than I could drive myself. There are some times where I would prefer that the car drive more aggressively, right? It drives safer than I drive personally. But I'm telling you, if you have not experienced Tesla self-driving, go to the Tesla dealership in Cool Springs, request a test drive, and just let it drive you wherever you want. It is life-changing. The Model Y also came out with a third row seat, so you can, if you've got a bigger family, you can now fit them in a Tesla vehicle. I'm telling you, I'm not being paid by Tesla. I don't say this lightly. A Tesla self-driving vehicle will change your life. And once you get a little taste of that self-driving, you will never go back. So I bought two Teslas, and then we had our original gas vehicles as well. I just kept them. I thought, we'll just have a fleet of vehicles. And what happened was no one ever wanted to drive the gas vehicles again. My kids hated them. My wife didn't want to drive them. I didn't want to drive them. They seemed archaic. They seemed like driving like a riding lawnmower. After you've experienced Tesla, you will not go back to a gas vehicle. You will not go back to any vehicle that will not personally drive you, right? So I've since sold off all my gas vehicles. All we've got is Teslas. And I'm telling you, if you're someone that spends a lot of time in their car, not even, it doesn't even have to be a lot of time. If you're ever in traffic, if you're ever tired after work and you just don't feel like driving, pushing a button, leaning the seat back, staring at your phone, closing your eyes, whatever you feel like doing is an option to you. And it does not cost $100,000 to get into these cars like it does those big SUVs that I was thinking about buying. The Escalades, the Suburbans, the Range Rovers. I had all that stuff. Those are twice the cost of a Tesla, and they are nowhere near as advanced. They're nowhere near as comfortable. They provide nowhere near the experience that a Tesla does. So if you needed a nudge, okay, I care about the environment, but the reason I got Teslas had nothing to do with the environment, had nothing to do with supporting Elon, had nothing to do about any of the culture wars. It is a robot chauffeur that takes me anywhere I want to go, so I don't have to do the work myself. and it has changed our life. And if you needed a nudge, there it was. 3 more short stories for you here. A Germantown project defies the leasing odds. Profit Dixon Partners' new project is now 60% lease, surpassing expectations. They've recently welcomed the first residents into Germantown's Chamberlain House this spring, and the building's 345 units, which is a big property, 345 is a lot, are now 60% leased. The quick lease-up defies the odds of Nashville's oversupplied apartment market. An unprecedented amount of multifamily development in the years following the onset of the pandemic has led to a surge of concessions around Nashville apartment buildings and a much slower path to hit stabilization. Stabilization, loosely defined as when a property reaches 90% occupancy. Our expectation would be that it would take 14 months or so to stabilize, and it's just going way faster than that. Profit Dixon Partners was intentional about making its project stand out. The location made that easier. A prime 2nd Avenue site wedged between First Horizon Park and the Cumberland River. The firm aimed to embrace the river, unlike many projects in Nashville, by significantly upgrading the surrounding greenway. Profit Dixon Partners also developed the Peyton Stakes apartment project in Germantown, going with an industrial vibe for that project. For Chamberlain House, the firm decided to go a different route to appeal to tenants focusing on health, wellness, and art. The building's amenities include a fitness center, outdoor pool, Peloton room, massage chairs, and rooftop deck, as well as a large outdoor dog park. The firm paid a whopping $32 million for the 6-acre 2nd Avenue property in 2021, and it has a second phase in store on the other half of the site. The firm plans to break ground on Farah, another apartment development, early next year. The plan is to revitalize the Greenway even more in its next project, adding a restaurant along the Greenway with outdoor seating. So, a property that sold in 2021 for a crazy price actually got built. Once it got built, it exceeded all expectations on lease-up. It did that with a location that tenants seemed to like, but also the concept focusing on health, wellness, and art, I think is much more on trend than their last project, which had kind of an industrial vibe. So health, wellness, and art in a good location, and you can overcome overpaying for land at the peak of the market. So that's great for the local apartment market. You know, a lot of kind of doom and gloom related to this oversupply, right? So Germantown, cranking right now. 345 units is an extreme amount of units to bring online, and they are really just knocking it out of the park. Here's a concept that I'm betting you have never heard of. I certainly haven't. America's first indoor 18-hole golf course. An indoor 18-hole golf course is now in Nashville. The facility will include a restaurant, driving bays, and an event space. City Golf USA is opening in West Nashville. The 174,000 square foot venue offers a full walkable course with real greens, dedicated short game areas, a driving range with golf zone simulators, private event spaces, a full service bar and restaurant, and retail pro shop, which aims to offer the same country club experience. After teeing off on the simulator, so you whack it into a simulator, right? Players will play the rest of the hole on real greens. A full round takes 2.5 hours. The venue is the size of 3 football fields located near the John C. Toon Airport. Quote, golf has never been more popular. I didn't know that. Is that true? Golf has never been more popular? I'm not a golfer. I don't have the time. And no one ever taught me how to golf. So starting at this late stage of life with absolutely no skills and no life, absolutely no skills and absolutely no time, right, is not a good move for me as far as I can tell. But supposedly it's more popular forever. But for millions of golfers, finding the time or even a place to play remains a challenge. It's a faster, more accessible way to experience the game. Founding memberships are $375 per month plus a $1,500 annual deposit. Public pay-per-visit tee times will also be available. Around cost between $60 to $125 depending on the time of day, which again, not a golf expert, seems reasonable. $60 to $125, not to have to be a member to access the course. I think this is awesome. 18 holes, each hole you start by whacking it into a simulator, and then somehow you continue the hole playing on the greens. I will tell you what makes this concept beautiful is we have such extreme weather in Middle Tennessee. I have children that play sports year round, so I am out in this extreme weather all the time. My children have been playing soccer the month of August, and I just think, what are we doing out here? It's 100 degrees outside, full sun, and these kids are running around playing a game that requires you to run miles per game. And I thought, if there was a soccer club, and we played for Tennessee Soccer Club, kind of the biggest and baddest in the market, and they don't even have it. If there was a competitive advantage for a sports concept in Middle Tennessee, it's having indoor conditioned space. We don't need any more outdoor fields. We need a field that's indoor. We need a field with air conditioning, right? That would be the game changer. And they found a way to do that for golf, which I would have never thought was possible. So golf gets an indoor facility before soccer does in Williamson County, which is shameful. We need indoor fields in Williamson County. We need more sports infrastructure everywhere you look in Williamson County. We need courts. We need indoor fields. We need temperature controlled. We need to be able to participate in our sports without melting in the sun like we've all been melting the month of August in Tennessee. So I think that's going to work real well. The price is right. The temperature is right. It's not going to be as kind of intimidating for a lot of folks. You aren't going to have to navigate the nonsense that comes with a country club membership. I think that concept is going to work. I hope it works. And I hope more concepts like that make it closer to me in Williamson County. Let's start with some soccer fields. Last story. A celebrity DJ plans a 300-person venue in downtown Nashville on the rooftop of a lower Broadway bar. Norwegian DJ Kygo is opening its signature Palm Tree Club atop AJ Capital Partners and Eric Church's Chiefs. The venue will open next month. So I didn't realize that. I'm told that many of the downtown Broadway concepts have different concepts on the top floor, the rooftop. So you go to Eric Church's Chiefs, but there's a different business on the top floor. This concept first opened in 2024 in Orlando. The Palm Tree Club has expanded to Miami, Las Vegas, and now Kansas City. The indoor-outdoor venue will offer a dedicated DJ booth and VIP seating areas, playing host to DJ sets, brand activations, sponsored events, performances, and more. Rodney Scott's Whole Hog Barbecue opened on the rooftop of Chiefs in 2024 before closing this summer amid its parent company's legal trouble. So I guess there was already a separate business on the rooftop, a barbecue joint. Barbecue joint gets replaced by a DJ concept. Chiefs opened in 2024 inside the 6-story building at 200 Broadway, which AJ Capital purchased for $25 million in 2021. The venue is also home to ticketed concert venue, the Neon Steeple. Many of Lower Broadway's venues create a club atmosphere on their rooftops at night with DJs and flashing lights rather than a honky-tonk feel with live musician. I didn't know that. I think that is a good idea. The later it gets, the drunker everybody gets, the more a DJ with loud music and flashing lights and people acting crazy seems appealing. But this DJ Kygo, believe it or not, I know who that is, and I like a lot of their music. It's just it's more up, upbeat, kind of feel good music. So I know that name. I don't know if I'll ever have a reason to get down here and experience this, but I do think it'll go well. Proof of concept is there, right? Orlando, Miami, Las Vegas, Kansas City, and now Nashville. So very cool. And perhaps you didn't know that these rooftops were activated by other businesses either, and that it's common as the night goes on for people to make their way to the roof for more of a kind of dance party type atmosphere. So all very interesting stuff. That rounds out today's podcast. If you made it this far, I appreciate you. I hope we've added a little bit of value to your day. As I mentioned at the top of the show, I am a commercial real estate broker who specializes in listing and selling commercial property in Nashville and the Southeast. If there's ever anything we can do for you as the owner of a piece of commercial real estate, I will go out of my way to make it happen. Thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you all again soon.